Hey there everyone, welcome back to a new adventure. If you clicked on this video, well, today is your lucky day. That's because today you're having the opportunity to join me for something that very few people get to experience. And that is a private, in-depth tour of a coal mine. It's being led by the UGM group, who's going to be giving us a tour of the mine and also possibly having the opportunity to climb an escape shaft and to operate some mine equipment. It's something you're not going to want to miss, so make sure to grab your flashlight and come along with me. Today I'm coming to you from Lansford, Pennsylvania, and we're here at the Lansford number 9 coal mine. Now, this place holds the record for the longest continuously operated coal mine in the world back when it was in operation. Now, I was actually here 2 years ago with a group of friends to do the tour, which was a great experience, but today's tour is something special, something different. It's being put on by the UGM group, which is a group of individuals who are highly passionate and dedicated about preserving coal mining history. And this is going to be a multi-hour tour. We're going to walk the entire length of the mine and also have the opportunity to climb an escape shaft all the way to the surface and to operate the mine locomotive, all of which I do plan on sharing in this video. It's going to be a great experience and something that most people won't get to see unless you're one of the select few people that are able to fill the spot for this tour. So it's going to be a longer video, but I highly encourage you and recommend to watch the entire thing because you not only will learn history about the number 9 mine, but also about coal mining in general. So all I ask you to do is to sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the video.
Welcome to the number 9 mine in our little special tour today. So thanks for everybody's support and your donations both to us and the number 9. We're gonna have a fun day. The plan is, if everything goes to plan, we're gonna walk in the mine with the lights off. So hopefully everybody brought their flashlights. If not, there's gonna be enough ambient light from everybody else. Talk about some things in the mine on the way in. We're gonna talk about how the mine has worked, some of our experiences working in here and in other mines in the area. And then everybody's going to get to climb the escapeway, whoever wants to. So that's always entertaining. If something were to happen in the mine, so every mine has to have a second outlet. If you go even farther, it has to have a third or fourth outlet. So up on top of the mountain up here, there's a shaft that goes up. There's the elevator shaft, and then there's an escapeway that goes up at an angle with a ladder up it. And that's kind of fun to climb up. So whoever wants to do that can do that. Another one of our guys who's not here yet, typical. He's going to lead you guys up the escapeway, and then Dan or Josh is going to follow up last just to make sure everybody gets up and gets out okay. And then Banks is going to come back down and close the escapeway, and then you guys are going to walk back down through town back to the mine site. And then after that, whoever wants to, we'll probably start running the locomotive. Whoever wants to not go out the escapeway, we'll start with them running the train. Get to run it in and out of the mine once or twice or 3 times, however many you want. All right, guys, so the 2 dates on the mine. Well, first I should note that number 9 mine is the longest continuously operating anthracite mine in the world. It was, the tunnel was driven in so the 2 dates on the top, I mean, the tunnel was originally driven in 1855, and then in 1931 is when they built the concrete portal. So originally it was just a rock tunnel going in with wood timbering supports, and then they came through and concreted the whole way in. It goes through a bunch of sand and wash, and it was collapsing all the time, dribbling through the timber. So they went and concreted most of the tunnel until it gets into good solid rock back in there a little ways. So we'll take a little walk inside. These are original colliery ventilation doors. So these would be automatically operated by the train. So as the train would come through, you can see on the track here, there's these old rusty steel things. The flange of the wheel would run over a plate that's there, push the plate down, and that would work some rigging that would open and close these doors. And the doors were important. You could feel the ventilation right now from the mine fan. And so the air's we're always having fresh air getting sucked in, and then it goes out up the mountain. They would close the doors so that the tunnel wouldn't ice up, and they would use a separate airway inside the mine for the intake, most likely the shaft. The air gets sucked down the elevator shaft and then out the fan on the return. So the doors were automatically operated, but back in the day, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they actually had small children. We don't have any kids on the tour with us today. Last time it was great. We had a 10-year-old boy who would have been perfect. Right after you were a breaker boy starting out, you'd move into the mines and be a door operator. So they had these kids that would sit in a little hole like this one here, and they'd listen for the trip to come. When they heard the trip come through, the boys would go out and open the doors. And you can imagine the attention span of some 10-year-olds. They fell asleep a lot or were playing, and the train would come through, and they'd expect that door to be open, and it wouldn't be. And the train would smash on through the door, and a lot of young children lost their lives because of that. The doors would fly apart and hit them, and it was terrible. When the mine closed in the 70s, they put a concrete seal on the opening, and the whole mine filled up with water. And out here, it was all the way up to the top of the mine. So this was all underwater. And then in 92, 93, when they reopened this to make a tour out of it, they blew that seal on the thing. And there's a picture of it in the museum up there where all that orange water came out and just flooded Dock Street. And that whole area out there was just under a big orange lake. And then they spent from 92 or 93, really when I said they opened it, until 2003. Or two, somewhere right around there, 10 years or so, cleaning all the mud out of here, because all the mud sunk to the bottom of the, from the water, and it was up over the top of the rail, and the rail was all bad. They actually put this rail in new back then. You can see that's actually starting to get worn. But Zach actually replaced a bunch of rail back by the shaft this last couple over the winter time. And the winter time is when they do the maintenance in the mine. So we do the tours over the summer and the maintenance in the winter time. And me and 2008, 2012, me and three of our guys, including Zach, who now runs the place, did the maintenance down here. And then Zach stuck around, became the president of the organization, and took the place over. Yeah, so if you guys see the water running out here, that's all just surface water coming in from rain and everything, and it goes out with the tunnel. The tunnel's driven on a little bit of a pitch on an incline going in, so that the water runs out, and it also makes it easier to pull the loaded coal cars outside, because they kind of roll with gravity down and out the tunnel. And then it's easier, to pull empty ones uphill than loaded ones. But this ditch, even when we were here years ago, they didn't muck the ditch out. So the water was pretty much right up to the sills or up to the rail. And it was a mess. There was mud going through. There was mud on the tracks. And that's what actually wore the tracks out fast, too. Keep an eye where you're walking through some up here. There's, it's not normal to walk in here. So there's little trenches and stuff for water to flow through so you don't step in them and trip.
What's that smell?
We couldn't actually figure out what that is. Yeah, it's something, I think something's rolling down to the surface. It's been here for forever. Couple rivers up here. This was a really fun place to do track work when we did it for a while. It's always rained right there. So the mine was originally worked as a tunnel. This tunnel kept going straight here, quite a ways back into the mountain. Mine, the Mammoth Seam Coal, which are around here. I'll have to look at those maps you guys got. You guys all brought them with you? Yeah. Perfect. It's the biggest seam of coal in the area. It reached, 60, 70 feet thick in some places. But the tunnel kept going straight, and then later on they drove this tunnel that goes off to the right side here. The one going straight is called the 100 tunnel. The one to the right is called the 101 tunnel. The one to the right goes the elevator shaft. The one straight just keeps going right back into the mountain. So we're going to spend a lot of time back in there. But we got a couple things and some demonstrations to show you guys. So we're going to do that right here. So if everybody just wants to come up around the mine motor and stand over here, this is where we're going to spend most of our time. Come on. Got the black car on the wrong side of the motor. You alright? Yeah, usually head out here.
Imagine back in the day when mining first started, we didn't have these nice lamps that people had. The first lamps first light that we actually used was just simply candle power, and candles don't give off that much light. And the one problem that they have is that they are a naked flame, which we're going to talk about a little bit with safety lamps. But the evolution from the simple candle to the oil wick lamp. Wow, imagine working all day with something like that.
Better than nothing.
Yeah, better. It is better than nothing. Better than a candle too, because now you don't have the wax melting down on your face either. But the problem is this, again, you're in a wet environment, light goes out, you have to relight your lamp. Or if you're by yourself and you run out of oil, which that's your own fault if you do, you have to refill it and then relight it. Now again, not throwing that much light, but again, better than a candle.
Scott, when would we use this light? What time period?
Time frame, we're talking about like the 1840s up until the 1890s. About that time frame. Again, there was a little bit of an evolution of the light, and then eventually, 1890s, the invention of the carbide lamp, which I have an example of here too. If you just give me a minute to get it set up. Again, is it a better flame than what you had before? Now again, you'd still have the problem of it going out every now and then.
So you just use your oil wick then?
Yeah. So again, shoots a little bit better light than what you see right there. A little bit cleaner light too. Again, the whale oil lamp's really kind of a dirty lamp. This one's a little bit cleaner.
It looks like a light.
Yeah, it looks like a light. Plus it has a reflector on it. That's the one thing too that this light has, a reflector. The reflector piece, which allows, again, a little bit more light to be cast out, which I can see your faces now, as opposed to with that one I can barely see you. Now again, a better example. But the problem here still, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, is the fact you got an open flame. Open flame. But again, it's a progression from that to this, and then eventually we get to the battery power lamps, which our lamps are a lot better too, because we have now the LED lamps. But back in the day, they were just the old metal wick, or the metal incandescent. Thank you, sir. Incandescent light bulbs. So a progression from one to the other. Now again, the reason why they eventually went to the lamps, besides the battery power, besides the fact that they are so much better, is the fact that in mines there is gases produced. Okay, one gas that's produced is what we call methane gas, which we call fire damp down underground. And methane was a problem back in England, back in the early days of mining, so much so that the government of England had scientists go out to figure out a way to keep the explosion rate of methane down. And what that produced was the safety lamps that we have down here today. Now I have a couple examples, a little progression of time. The first safety lamps that were produced back in 1815 by Sir Humphrey Davy looked like this. Now I'm going to light this one up. This is one of my best lamps that I have. Let me get that going. Let me get the wick going. Now again, this is based upon a wick and simply a kerosene. I can't. Now the whole idea here is somehow, some way to keep the flame from igniting the methane gas. And Sir Humphrey Davy, who invented this back in 1850, figured out that if you cool the flame, if you keep the flame cool, gases will not come out of the lamp itself. Because people always say, well, wait, you got an open flame there. Why won't Well, why won't that ignite the gas? Because the chamber that the flame is in right now is housed in a metal gauze, and that metal gauze actually can cool the flame. If methane were to get in here, yeah, the methane would cause the flame to enlarge. That's how miners knew that there was methane gas. The flame would get larger. But the flame couldn't come out because the screen stops the flame from coming out. I'll give you a little example right here. I have a, Chris, you don't mind if I get into this, do you?
Oh, absolutely.
Again,
Scott is
it's the teacher in me.
He's a teacher. Scott's also a tour guide here at this mine and at the Lackawanna Mine Tour.
If you have a metal screen here, this is made out of brass, but if you take that and with a lighter, if the lighter will work, again, it got wet. All right, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. We use the lamp itself. You'll notice that the flame does not go through the metal, and that's because the metal itself is cooling the flame below the ignition point. So what happens in this case is that if there was methane gas, the flame would increase in size, but it would not come out of the metal gauze itself. So again, it allows you to determine there's gas, but again, it keeps it as safe as possible. And what they do is slowly put this right to the roof. Now, why they're doing it slow, so if there is any gas, they're not going to suck it back into the light itself. And again, they're looking to see if the light gets brighter or the flame get larger. It does methane gas here. Then they check for the oxygen or the low levels of oxygen or the black damp, which is again low oxygen levels or high carbon dioxide levels. And they usually check the floor for that because carbon dioxide is going to accumulate on the floor. And what they're going to look for again is the flame get larger, get smaller in size, because again, less oxygen for the flame to work. So give it a tap off the roof, guys. Give it a tap off the roof. It should sound very, very, very. You get a nice little ding out of it. It should not sound hollow.
Okay, I think we're safe in this area.
Yeah, you guys can check it out. You should not.
I didn't check above your head.
This is a pretty small one. And you use this thing for drilling your hole. And this thing be vibrating, carrying on and crying. You've got to hold this thing up. And this is a small one, so this would be more for just like breaking rocks up. A normal one would be about twice the size. If anybody wants to play with this, they can. But then, yeah, I thought about that too. And then, I'm going to actually come around behind you guys and pull that one off the back. So this one, actually, you're going to swing it around. Kind of carry it around like this, it balances itself. Now the leg, set it up right. The leg will support the drill. And you put it about at that angle there. Now, the beauty thing about this is that this is a big piston, okay? You can pretty much run this drill single-handed. So there's two two controls on this, and there's two lines. This is the air coming in, and this is water. So you'd have a pump in the ditch that would pump water because rock dust is really bad for you. Rock dust is worse for you than coal dust. So they wanted to keep the dust down. That was the other thing about using the that drill. There's no water or no dust control. The steel is hollow. So when you turn your water pump on and you start well, first you start the hole dry because you just got water spraying all over the place. You wouldn't be able to do it. So you start the drill. This is the throttle for the drill here, and you can kind of start it slow, and then this will hammer and spin the bit at the same time. So you start your bit, and you get your hole started. You turn your water valve on, this guy here. Send the water through the hole. We were going to run this for you guys. So on the next tour, we're actually going to do this and drill a couple holes. But they got a problem with their airline and couldn't see. That's the original Collery airline right there, that steel thing. And there's a pickup for it. So they're still using the airline from back in the day. So we're going to do another tour here, probably over the winter time. The tour is shut down next weekend, but we can do one during the winter when the normal tours aren't going, so we can make some noise. But so how this would work is you'd run the handle, get your hole started, get your water going in, and now it's going to make a big mess up there. So this handle on the back is like a motorcycle throttle. That controls the leg. So as you're drilling, you start giving a little bit of throttle, and this piston will start lifting the drill. And because of the angle, it'll start pushing it in the hole. So you don't want to make your hole go like a banana So you got to kind of control the piston so that your drill stays straight. So it'll hold it up for you, and you kind of keep you basically open it wide open and let it go. And start running it in. You can put in, you know, a normal rock hole pattern. You put in 25 holes, and then you load it with your powder. Usually, oh, I don't know, about 30 sticks of powder in there, about a dozen. Then you wire that up and you set it off, and that makes a big boom.
How loud is that drill, Chris?
This one?
Yes.
Well, that's why we have these earbuds on our head, because this thing is really loud. So it makes quite the ruckus. But this thing is great because it'll sit here by itself. And then, like I said, you can run it with one hand. Now, drilling your middle holes here, if we were drilling the rock cut, the middle holes would be easy to drill. The higher holes, when the drill gets up here, you kind of have to hold it and push it in. And drilling the lower holes are a pain too, because you kind of have to hold it up. But for the most part, it's a really nice drill to run. And this one's number 9s. We used this actually, the last time we used this here was 2009 or 10? Yeah, it was 10 when we were doing that. Oh. Okay. Hey guys, you can maybe pass this along back, but as you're walking up, you can see this orange line on the east side or the rim here. That's where the mine was flooded to. Wow. It was right here. And so you can tell the pitch. Back at the portal, it was flooded all the way up to the top. But as we get back farther, it goes down to shaft level, and the water was draining down the shaft. That's where you're going to go later.
Oh. This ain't no escalator.
No.
Where's the button? I don't see the button for the elevator.
Damn, I knew that extra donut was a bad idea.
So if you guys look here, yeah, you're in the rock. Most of you are in the rock. But as you can see, there's a little bit of timber here. And this is the actual vein of coal right here. What vein is this, Zach? Are you in here?
That's the orchard.
This is the orchard. So this is the orchard vein. And you have your top rock and your bottom rock on either side. And this is how screwed up the anthracite is. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a bituminous mine out in western Pennsylvania or West Virginia or whatever, but where they all lay, the veins lay completely flat. Did you talk about this at all?
No.
Right here. In the bituminous out in western Pennsylvania and most of the country, most bituminous mines, the veins lay completely flat underneath the ground. And that's why it's so much easier and cheaper to mine bituminous, and that's why it's used in power plants and used for steel making mostly. And it's just a lot easier to get at the way it lays in the ground. Anthracite, on the other hand, even though it is a higher quality coal, I mean, some of this coal is like 97, 98% carbon. There's very little impurities in it. Even though it doesn't look very good here, it's been exposed to the air for a lot of years. But if you fired this off, it would be black and shiny and nice. Even though it's a really, really high quality coal, it's very difficult to mine with modern technology. You know, with continuous miners and longwall miners, the big machines that you basically drive around underground and chew up the coal, and it just spits it out behind it, runs it onto a conveyor belt and sends it outside. They never could do that here. Well, at least not very much. A few places did, but not very much. Most of it's conventionally mined by hand, even still today. It's all still drilled and blasted, and just like it was back in 1910, back in the day.
You'll see the water level tunnel that comes out of the side of the hill on the left side. That's what we're in. And the first vein I think you see there that it intersects is labeled the orchard.
How about that?
And that's the one we're in. So you can see how the vein.
I like this test. The answers are on it.
So that's like the pitch of the coal. So if you can imagine it, we're looking at, it's basically this side view of the tunnel as we're looking at it right here. It's a cross section of the mine.
If I was going to drill this out as a round, I'd take this drill, stick it into the vein, I'd drill out. I'd start with a hole here in the middle, I'd angle it just a little bit as a breaker hole, a little bit of a wedge hole as it were. And what that does is that hole, once I load this all with dynamite, is going to go off first. The very first hole, boom, first shot goes off. And with a little bit of a wedge on it, it's going to shoot the coal out of the middle of the vein here. Okay, it's going to shoot a little plugger hole out of the middle. And then I'm going to go from there and put in relief holes around that. So depending on the how hard the vein is and stuff, we'll just say this is a super hard vein, we need lots of holes. So after that relief hole goes off in the middle, that little wedge hole, then we're going to have holes straight into the vein instead of on a little bit of an angle, but straight into the vein. And as those go off, they're going to fire into that hole that was created by the first hole, by the reliever hole. It's not a burn hole, it's not a rock cut. I don't know how to explain this better. Anyway,
You're doing good.
first hole goes off, and then say, pick one of the 4 around it. Second hole goes off, third hole goes off, fourth hole goes off, fifth hole goes off. And what I like to do is go to my top holes next. So say here it's really, really hard and we need 3 holes across the top. So you can take the middle hole first. It might make it easier for the cut to come out. Fire the middle hole. That's going to fire down into the center here. Fire that hole, and then fire the left-hand hole, the right-hand hole. And once those are all down and all that coal's laying, and this is happening within milliseconds, once all that coal's laying here in a pile, then I like to fire my bottom holes sometimes all at once. And what that does is it'll lift the pile out away from the face. And you make it a lot easier to load and get at. Especially when you're driving, when you're up the pitch, when you're way up the pitch and you're trying to send the coal down the pitch into a chute, like right here. If you're trying to send the coal down the pitch, if you're driving a heading across, you don't want to have to shovel all that coal over to where it's going to go down to the chute. You want it to lift itself out and make as much of it to go down the chute as possible. But
We would turn from the rock tunnel into the vein here and then run, this is a giant vein, so that it's kind of set up a little bit different. But the chutes you'd see are laid out like this. So on the handout on the right side, the left picture on the right side is kind of how you'd see the gangway on the bottom would be going in, and then those chutes would go up this way as you're driving that direction.
If you were to drill and blast this area here, like how long would it take from start of drilling to excavating the coal out? Like how long would the process take?
With your timber, if you're only putting 1 prop in, which here you can get away with it, 1 prop in and lining it off, once you fire this out, let me go through the process here. All right, if we start here, if I started here and I drilled this and I fired it, you're going to want to muck it out and get it to the point where you can get timber in. So until you muck it, get your timber in, get your high rib lined off, drill it again and load it and fire it. It'd probably take about 4 hours. You should be able to get 2 rounds out of here in a shift.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys didn't meet Zach yet, this is Zach. He's the caretaker of this fine establishment.
It's a joy every day.
Zach rose up the ranks through our organization. He was nosing around the old mines with us in the long ago, and
Don't make me sound old. It seems old now.
well, we're all getting old.
Oh,
Zach was just a baby.
I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, and we were volunteering down here on the weekends. I hung out down here 2003 and 4 for a couple weeks, and then went and worked Pioneer Tunnel for a little while doing timber work. That's kind of where me and Adam and Banks started out. Off the Orchard vein.
Now, as you saw when you were all walking in here, there are 2 dates up above our portal, 1855 and 1931. This mine was opened in 1855. That gives our mine, first off, 2 records that it still holds. This mine is considered the oldest continuously operated deep anthracite coal mine in the world. That record is held by the United Mine Workers of America. That's where that one comes from, with its 117-year continuous operational life. This mine is also the oldest coal mine you can tour in the United States. At 166, that's a nice little thing that we hold on to. Now, on the portal 1931, they did a lot of upgrading in this mine to extend its useful life, beginning in 1930. The first thing, of course, was the new portal 1931, concrete work, all the steel work that we're walking underneath. This was all part of a 1930s upgrade, just to, again, increase this mine's useful life. The mine did end up closing, though, in June of 1972. Last trip out of here was June 22nd, the day Agnes flood happened in Wilkes-Barre. That was the last day of operation of this mine. They sealed it off in the mid-70s, and it was not reopened again for the for restoration of the tour until 1995. So it had been sealed for quite a long time. As y'all walked around through here, you probably saw the orange line on the wall. This mine was flooded for about 20 years. So that caused a lot of the silty road damage you see, all of the decrepit state of some of our inside buildings and the shanties. That just all from sitting in water. First tours in here were at the beginning of June of 2002. So next year we're going to mark 20 years of tours here. So at least we got it back in shape. But it's been a bit of a weird road here for number 9. Now, I'll talk about the little building behind me here. Now, this is a more modern mine hospital. This room was part of that 30s upgrade. It was built right around 1929, one of the very first concrete structures in here. It did replace an earlier mine hospital in the same spot that was terracotta block in the 19 teens. But if you go back to the mines in the 19th century, go back to the 1800s, there were no such things. Miners in the 19th century, as y'all probably know, were considered more or less a commodity by large coal companies. They were easily replaceable if you were killed or crippled in an accident underground. So the easiest thing you would do in the 1870s, what typically would happen to you, I should probably say, you're up in a chute, you're working, you're getting through your day, you're maybe 2 or 3 hours into a shift, you got hurt. So you're banged up pretty good. We're going to say you cut your hand pretty severely, you broke a leg. I mean, you're not in good shape. Laborer working with you. Now he is going to perhaps tear a piece of your shirt off. Best thing he's going to do to bandage your wound as best he can. He's going to put you down near the foot of the chamber, the base, down near gangway level, tunnel level, somewhere where it's safe. But that's where you'd probably be sitting for the remainder of your shift. Again, coal companies in the 1800s probably not going to send a mine car in just to take you outside because you're injured. Production of the coal, that was far more important at that time. Now, it wasn't until 1890 things started getting a little bit better. In 1890, you had the formation of the United Mine Workers of America. The Union, through a series of sit-down strikes, work stoppages in the 1890s. That was a very, very violent decade. So you're talking, labor strikes, sit-downs around the mines, threatening of mine officials, things of this nature. By 1900, the Union is now having a little bit more sway with these larger coal companies. Now, what you start to see in the large mines after really about 1895 on, as part of wanting better wages, better working conditions, or what we call mine hospitals. Early ones that were very crude, nothing like this. An early mine hospital, that would be nothing more than a stone or wooden shack, essentially underground, well-traveled area of a mine. In that little room, you'd find bench or planks. They could lay you out if you're severely injured. Box with basic medical supplies, gauze, bandages, things like this. Chances are you'd probably find a jug of whiskey in there as well. I'm going to give you a little swig of that if you're in pain. But that was the best thing that they were going to be able to do for you in the 1890s at that point. First aid in industry in general in the 1890s still in its extreme infancy. So you move up into the 19-teens. End of the First World War, 1918, that is when you're going to start to see mine hospitals of this model built in larger mines. In this room originally, you would have actually been greeted by running water, electric lighting. This room was clean, dry, white painted, had 2 cots in here they could lay you out on if you're severely injured. This room was well stocked with medical supplies. Now, there wasn't an attendant, though, in the room. Large mines like this one would have had its own mine rescue team. You think of it, EMTs for a mine accident. So you would have to have one of these guys that has better first aid training come in here to assist you. But he's going to be the one to clean you up a little bit. He's going to bandage your wound properly, get your broken leg into a splint. Anything at least to get you stable enough. Then they're going to get you on a flat car, take you outside of the mine. Many miners' lives were saved inside of this mine hospital. However, again, men did pass away in this room as well. Of course, we all know mining is a very dangerous job to find yourself in. And this mine, from my own research, has had 67 fatalities in it. The first one that I noted was in 1871, and the last one was in July of 1959. That was the last fatality in here. So it does happen, even in mines of today, very dangerous work. I mean, periodically accidents do happen. Sadly, there have actually been more recent accidents in surface strip mines and underground, but that's only simply because there are so few underground mines going as compared to surface stripping operations anymore.
Filled up all the way back here. This timber.
This was a collapse.
Yeah, this was collapsed.
These are fun.
And the timber looks like it's been here for a million years, but we put this in.
I plan on getting back here again, but right now
we did this.
the tunnel's a little more.
So when we did this,
because mucking machine is easier than this.
we used that jack leg drill that I showed you guys before, and me and Scott ran that thing. Where's Scott? Scott! Yeah, there he is, Scott. So Scott would hold the bit to get it started because you're running this thing up here like this now, and it's kind of hard to.
It's on YouTube right now.
Yes, it is. That's right. We got some.
Yeah.
Yeah, our number 9 project on YouTube. So we dug these hitches with that jack leg because this rock is hard, and chipped the holes in for the hitch, and then stuck the props in. This is called a 2-piece set. This top piece would be the collar. Even though it's technically this is actually the top rock, this would be the top and this would be the bottom. But the way the weight's coming down, it's not so much pushing. Pitch mining, the way you do your timber work is, kind of condition specific. So the way the wedges are cut for the timber to work, even though this is the top and where the collar would be, the weight is still pushing down from the top because there's a coal chute right here that still has a piece of colliery screening timber across, and it's still caught some stuff. You guys can come up here one at a time and look. They say there will be a short. Okay. So all this stuff came down from the chute. You can see up there. There's still 2 colliery timbers holding a bunch of junk up there, but there would have been a wooden coal chute here built, and all this coal and stuff fluffed off of the pillar right here and came down. So this all has to get timbered and cribbed up. So you won't even see any of this because the timber is going to continue, and there'll be planks and boards on top, and then almost like a log cabin support built on top to go all the way up to the vein up there. But then what we did to clean all this mud out of here and rock and coal is we had a chain conveyor back at the tunnel. Oh yeah, thanks.
Just looking up a chute right there with a manway next to it, all those steps. Pretty incredible. I was looking to collapse of some coal of the Mammoth vein. They said this tunnel here would continue on past that, but it has to be mucked and cleared out. But that is all coal that has collapsed down, but it is clear on the other side. It's just not timbered or safe yet, but they do plan on clearing that out and hopefully continuing the tour in that direction. But the rails do continue, and that's a big chunk of material, but that is the Mammoth vein of coal. The hoist system. More of those skeletons around here.
Okay, 150 feet down is the second level, and then the third level is below that underwater. As we walk across here, you can look over the edge and you can actually look down the shaft, and you can see down to the water level. The second level is actually above water, and you can take the mule way down and go around down there, but it's abandoned. It looks basically just like this, just muddier. But it's pretty neat that the elevator cages are still here. You can see those the handles on them. Men would actually ride these cages up and down too, and that's how you steady yourself. There's no gate, there's no doors, there's no safety equipment. You're your own safety equipment. So you'd stand on that and hold on to that handle and hold on for the ride.
So this is a picture up on the surface of the head frame for these elevators. It's 200 feet above us, but it's a total of 700 feet from the surface all the way down to the bottom level. I can't get a flight down there really so far.
If you hold right here where
Oh yeah, I can see. Okay. Oh yeah, there's the water. That's scary, but cool. Like an old oil can.
That's the tour train coming in.
It's like a parts room in here.
Before we had those electric locomotives that we're pulling the mine cars around with now, they used mules in the mines. And the mules actually lived down here. There was underground stables, later made out of concrete, first made out of wood. They'd keep the mules in the mine, they'd live out their whole life in the mine, and the mules actually had more value to the coal company than the miners did. It was a severe penalty. I mean, you'd be dismissed, fired, hung, whatever back in the day for, abusing a mule. But the young lad here, you'd start out your job as a breaker boy, back 10 years old, working in the breaker, picking rock out of the coal. And then you'd graduate to come into the mines. As we talked about that ventilation door in the beginning being a a door boy, and then you graduate from being a door boy to a mule driver. So he would pull the mule, or guide the mule down the gangways and down the tunnels to get the coal out. And they'd use one of these guys here called a sprag. They'd use these to stop the mine cars. So this one's nice and well worn, it's old. But this was the brake. These mine cars didn't have brakes on them, and as you can see, the tunnel's kind of driven on a bit of a pitch. Like I said, it was easier to pull the coal out on tracks that go downhill a little bit. So if you have to put brakes on, you don't want the coal car that could weigh 5 tons with coal to run the mule over. So you would actually take this sprag and you'd stick it in the spoke of the mine car wheel. That would roll around and lock up against the frame of the car, and it would lock up that wheel. So I think we've got videos of that in our spragging games too. Well, as you can imagine, that's very dangerous. A lot of kids lost their arms, got killed, trip and fall under the mine car. Very dangerous. The other part of this thing is that, a lot of guys would, if you got to get the mule going, you give them a whack on the rear end with the sprag. Well, the mule remembered that. They were kind of spiteful there. So whenever you walked along between the rib, this is nice and wide here, and it wasn't always wide. Whenever you walk between the rib and the mule, you always walk with the sprag sideways like this and hold it in front of you. Because what that mule would do is he'd know you were going through there, and he'd pinch you against the rib. And he'd hold you there. So if you had this sprag here and he tried to pinch you, the pointy end of the sprag would stick him inside and he'd back right out. Or so the stories go.
What's behind the tarping back there? Does it keep going?
Yeah, so this is the 101 tunnel, it's called. The one we walked down where the hospital is the 100 tunnel. These two parallel each other. And you notice when we came in, there was a split in the track, and the tour comes to the right. And then there's the staging area, then there's the shaft, and then this continues. And then the 100 tunnel continues that way, and then these meet up again. And they're both collapsed in the same place at the timber at the Mammoth. But the reason, I was telling these other guys earlier, the reason for this tunnel is when they put the shaft in, they bring the empties, they take the coal out the shaft and out the tunnel, then they bring the empties back down the 100 tunnel and then back down this way. And all the empties would roll this way into the shaft through that feat of complete over-engineering transfer table car that moves side to side. Why they couldn't have just put a switch track there, I don't know. But they have that whole apparatus. And the empties would go onto the elevator cages there to get sent down the cage. So as one cage was going down, the other one would be coming up, and the empty would be going down, and the loaded coal car would be coming up, and they'd take them out the tunnel here. They never actually took, I mentioned this earlier, but they never took the coal up to the surface here. The coal never went out to the head frame. It's up on the top of the mountain, which you guys are going to see in just a little bit, whoever's brave enough to climb the escapeway. But they took the tunnel out, or the coal out this water level tunnel, and then across the street to the number 8 breaker.
Here I go rambling again.
Here we go.